Let me say a little bit about Mike. I'm going to embarrass Mike. I'm not going to embarrass him. I said to Tina there, if somebody runs up there, I don't want to get slapped tonight. So I'm not going to say anything real bad about him. I never would anyway. Mike and I went to school together here, and we got a little bit of history. I went to school here with a lot of people like John and Alan down those guys. But Mike and I actually took classes together, and he got this position down here. I'm jealous of it. I had a good job, but I was still jealous of him. My having the experience really was a good experience here. And I thought, man, how can you be so lucky to be a technician at college? Well, let me tell you what happened. I had a hard pair of shoes to fill. A real big pair of shoes to fill when Mike left. Mike was kind of an inventor. I don't know whether anybody's ever called him that or not, but there's all kinds of things on this campus that Mike had built. Everywhere I looked, it was Mike Perkins, Mike Perkins, Mike Perkins. And you're a new technician, you're wanting to get on with your career. And there was old Mike everywhere. He was very organized. I could see that right off the bat. He was well liked by these guys back here. I knew that for a fact. He was another good-looking guy back then with, what'd you say, Mike? Afro?
Big old afro.
Big old afro. And he was good-looking. But you never believe it. He told me he was going to go to college. He was going to go to college at Bluefield State. I moved down here, and a lot of Monday mornings, we passed each other on the other side of Union. He was coming in before daylight that way, and I was coming this way. And I tried to look for him at a certain place because I knew he'd probably be coming through there, heading up there to go to school all week. And sometimes we'd be quick enough to blink each other. And, how you doing, Mike? And that's the truth, isn't it, Mike? I don't know how many times we did that, but he was up there going to school and I was down here doing his job. But anyway, thank goodness. I don't know whether you all remember Freddie Dyer and Medicus Miller. I wish they were here tonight. I mean, those are two old school boys. Mike, if it hadn't been for them, they must have worked with you. Because they took my hand and they led me around here for 6 months till I learned where everything was. So I didn't know where anything was. And I was new. And the faculty here, they've got a job to do, I've got a job to do, and I wanted to do as good a job as I possibly could. And those boys knew everything you've done, you must have kept them with you some. Because they knew where all the tools were, where all the labs were, and they really helped me out a lot. And I haven't ever seen Freddie. He's from down Abingdon way down there, but I have seen Medicus at least once since he graduated back, or I don't know if Medicus ever graduated, to be honest with you. Well, anyway, 3 or 4 years later, the faculty had changed. The faculty was coming in, starting to go in and out. Mike's sawmill ladder invention was still in place. I never did take it down, Mike, I used it until they moved that sawmill out, the old one out. And really about that time, what I consider the second phase of forestry began. And I would say in this room there were some of you who weren't even born when all that was going on. We were down here doing that. You weren't even born. But anyway, I was finally a forest technician. I was that for 3 years. Again, don't fact check me on my years because they're pretty close, but from 77 to 81, I was a technician, and I had good guys to work with. I learned a lot from my faculty here, every one of them, especially Tom Brasinger, and he had a background, a degree in, I think, logging, forestry, and I learned a lot from him. I stuck to him like a tick. He might not have thought so, but I did, because they taught me too. My students, I learned a lot from them. I paid attention to things they said and done. And I had kids from logging families coming in here, and they'd been hanging out with their dad since they were 2 years old. And they had a lot of skill. And I tapped in on everything that I could tap in on, whether I needed to or not. And I put a lot of faith in other people too when I had this job. But I was a technician for 3 years. I'm getting here towards the end of it. My responsibility when I came here was lab setup, equipment maintenance and repair. I did an inventory. I hated that inventory, Mike. I don't know how you done that thing. There was 10,000 pieces of stuff that we had to inventory like twice a year. And so I inherited that. I was responsible for fuel, oils. I helped supervise in a heavy lab, sawmilling and logging. I was a van driver, and I have to say this is a little short story, but I was so thankful that old convict bus was gone. Allendale, you rode on it. John rode on it. Mike, who drove it? Yeah, Terry Kaufman drove it. We had a yellow bus. I don't know where that thing come from, Dr. Backles. But it was old to start with. The thing of it, it had a cage in it where they hauled. I don't know whether I'm legally able to call them convicts or not. Anyway, those forestry boys, we were with Mr. Lockhart going on that 5-day PD trip. 5 days down to Camp PD. Mosquitoes big as beer cans and heat, 109 degrees, and then a dismal swamp. But anyway, let me get back to that bus real quick. That bus set a record for going across Afton Mountain, 7 miles an hour. I'm not kidding. We'd go through a town, and we always had a forestry somebody that would get up on that cage and let me out of here. And people thought that there was real convicts on the bus. Allendale, I could see him doing it. But we rode that thing everywhere, and it was big, and it was old, and you could walk up Afton Mountain faster than you could drive. But I had to say that, and I made a special note here about this thing. But I think I heard they had threw that thing in the Jackson River and made fish habitat out of it. They had never done that. Made fish habitat out of that old bus. So anyway, it's gone. They had some pretty decent vans here, but I think those of you who were here the last few years, they got forestry was hard on vans. We got in trouble for vibram lugs and scratches all over our vans because we had them off-road a lot of times. But anyway, I was a van driver, counselor, guest lecturer sometimes, and I transported most of the material that they were producing in the labs. I was responsible for getting somebody to move that material. Back in the day, I had students that had come off these tobacco farms and dairy farms over in Piedmont over here that could drive a truck, and I trusted them to take a log truck to the paper mill. A lot of days, students went up with log truck loads of pulpwood and saw timber and things like that, and you could trust them not to run over somebody and get everybody in trouble. Little did I know the people I worked with those 3 years and the experience I was gleaning prepared me for a career that I was eventually to do at DSLCC, which was teaching the forest product side of the program. In 1981, education in the forest industry for me was going under a lot of change. My previous colleagues were aspiring to higher goals, and they were coming in and out of here. Did John say how many? I dealt with about 14 faculty here. And one thing you got to understand, Craig, somebody was always coming in and out, and I couldn't get used to anybody. You know exactly what I mean. But the reason why I single Craig out is because he stayed here 10 years, and Sandy was here 10 years, and we had some flow there. We had 20 years of being constant. But I want to say something about the influx of faculty that we had here just a minute. But anyway, this thing was going under some change, and I was seeing it. Previous colleagues were aspiring to higher goals. Charlie Wade and Sam Bailey, they had resigned after I think it was only 3 or 4 years. That's long enough. I don't blame them. I just found a home here. I liked it here. Didn't have to move and find anything else. If you found your home somewhere you really like what you're doing. And I always told my students that's what a job is all about. They're having fun. I had few jobs where I didn't have fun, but this was a challenging job, and I did have a lot of fun. Charlie went back to Lexington and rebuilt his family grist mill. And I want to mention that. That's what he wanted to do. They had an old grist water mill in their family for years. And I think that Sam Bailey went to the DOF. He may have gone somewhere else first and went to the DOF. They were great guys to work with also. Ward, back here, I got to work with Ward for, Ward, 4 or 5 years, was it? I think it was that long. I lose track of the number of years. I'm talking Ward. he's not asleep yet. He's thinking. But I gleaned a lot of knowledge from all the people that I've worked with, and it so happened one morning, as time passed, Dr. Frank Churchman was my division chair. I was coming up from the sawmill. He's coming down. He had a paper in his hand. That's not a good thing when somebody's coming at me with a piece of paper. So he stopped. And he says, I want to talk to you. And I said, about what? I'm busy. I didn't really say that. He was much the chair, so I cut him a little slack. He said, you're going to be promoted to instructor. I actually looked at him and said, I like what I do. But he handed me that contract anyway. And I'm not going to say this, but I don't think he meant it. He said, you can either take this promotion or you might want to go find another job. Kids were like that. We were good friends over the years. But he did say that, so I took him very seriously. But he handed me that, I said, I like my job, and I did. I was a technician, and I really liked being a technician. I took that contract home, discussed it with my wife and kids. Finally got to the point where I read the fine print. It was a contract from Dr. Backles. And it said, you must actively pursue your bachelor's degree. I had a 2-year associate's degree. That's why I went back to college. But in the blink of an eye, I continued to be a technician for life. I became instructor of forest and wood products here at Dabney. I still was a husband with 3 kids then, and a student at Mary Baldwin until 1986 when I completed my requirements for a BA in biology with a minor in ecology. It took me a while to do that. And my students every year come in, they said, Mary Baldwin. I said, yeah. I thought that was a girls' school. Hey, it is. It's a girls' school. I said, what's the matter with that? And they didn't say anything. So after one of those years, I went straight to my office and I called my counselor down at Mary Baldwin. And I said, how many guys? I knew a bunch of guys that gone through there. I said, how many guys have gone through that program? He said, over 500. So then after that, they didn't ask me about it anymore because I told them there had been, somebody told me the other day, several thousand had graduated, but they wanted to know how I got a degree from a prestigious girls' college. Try it sometime. It's pretty fun. You want to go to one of Mary Baldwin's graduations, and there's 300 or 400 girls there and 2 or 3 guys. That's a lot of fun. Well, I'll finish this up here in a minute, and you're probably looking forward to me doing that, but I got to mention Sandy Silver again. John and him had mentioned Sandy Silvers. In 1981, he appeared on our campus. Let me tell you a little bit about him that they didn't tell you. I got to know him really well. The first time I smoked to him, he was a chain smoker, and he was sitting there smoking one cigarette right after another down there behind the tree. And I thought, who in the world is that? He's an older guy. He was about my dad's age. He didn't really look it. He was in pretty good shape at that time. But that's where I saw him, was in that old office complex we have down there. And I, this is where I say many fine people over the years had a big hand in what we are here today at Dabney. Forestry technology entered many new eras, but it really entered a new era when Sandy came. And let me tell you why real quick. Number one, he and I became lifelong friends. And I got a lot of daddy advice for him. He was a heck of a mentor. I had a dad, a good one, but I also had really 2 of them. And Sandy was a good guy. I don't think anybody in here will say that he wasn't. What he brought to us was contacts and recognition that we had never had before. This guy worked with the Forest Service in Washington, and if I understand it correctly, he was over employment throughout the entire state, if I'm right. We began to feel the encroachment of computeration during the time when I became a teacher and Sandy came on the scene. Our environmental issues becoming the big ticket, and the item of the day was tree hugger and Bambi. I went through that. I didn't like it. I cut trees down. I harvested trees. I sawed trees. I made lumber out of them. But that was a tough era there, and it died off a little bit. But here we got both on campus and off campus. I call a lot of flack for killing trees. I was a tree killer sometime, but I just kept a big old smile on my face and just kept moving on.